Ecology. A panorpid scorpionfly feeding on a dead insect. Scorpionflies, family Panorpidae, generally live in broadleaf woodlands with plentiful damp leaf litter. Snow scorpionflies, family Boridae, appear in winter and are to be seen on snowfields and on moss, the larvae being able to jump like fleas. Hanging flies, family Bitacidae, occur in forests, grassland and caves with high moisture levels. They mostly breed among mosses, in leaf litter and other moist places, but their reproductive habits have been little studied, and at least one species, Nanochorista philpottii, has aquatic larvae. 10. Adult Mecopterans are mostly scavengers, feeding on decaying vegetation and the soft bodies of dead invertebrates. Panorpa raid spider webs to feed on trapped insects and even the spiders themselves, and hanging flies capture flies and moths with their specially modified legs. Some groups consume pollen, nectar, midge larvae, carrion and moss fragments. 10. Most Mecopterans live in moist environments. In hotter climates, the adults may therefore be active and visible only for short periods of the year. 23. Mating behavior. Panorpa communis mating. Various courtship behaviors have been observed among Mecopterans, with males often emitting pheromones to attract mates. The male may provide an edible gift such as a dead insect or a brown salivary secretion to the female. Some boraids have hook-like wings which the male uses to pick up and place the female on his back while copulating. Male panorpids vibrate their wings or even stridulate while approaching a female. 10. Hanging flies have distinct mating behavior. Hanging flies Bitacidae provide a nuptial meal in the form of a captured insect prey, such as a caterpillar, bug, or fly. The male attracts a female with a pheromone from vesicles on his abdomen. He retracts these once a female is nearby, and presents her with the prey. While she evaluates the gift, he locates her genitalia with his. If she stays to eat the prey, his genitalia attach to hers, and the female lowers herself into an upside-down hanging position, and eats the prey while mating. Larger prey result in longer mating times. In Hylobidicus apiculus, prey 3 to 14 mm, 0.12 to 0.55 in long give between 1 and 17 minutes of mating. Larger males of that species give prey as big as houseflies, earning up to 29 minutes of mating, maximal sperm transfer, more oviposition, and a refractory period during which the female does not mate with other males. All of these increase the number of offspring the male is likely to have. 30. Life cycle. The female lays the eggs in close contact with moisture, and the eggs typically absorb water and increase in size after deposition. In species that live in hot conditions, the eggs may not hatch for several months, the larvae only emerging when the dry season has finished. More typically, however, they hatch after a relatively short period of time. The larvae are usually quite caterpillar-like, with short, clawed, true legs, and a number of abdominal prolegs. They have sclerotized heads with mandibulate mouthparts. Larvae possess compound eyes, which is unique among holometabolous insects. 31. The 10th abdominal segment bears either a suction disc, or, less commonly, a pair of hooks. They generally eat vegetation or scavenge for dead insects, although some predatory larvae are known. The larva crawls into the soil or decaying wood to pupate, and does not spin a cocoon. The pupae are exarate, meaning the limbs are free of the body, and are able to move their mandibles, but are otherwise entirely non-motile. In drier environments, they may spend several months in diapause, before emerging as adults once the conditions are more suitable. 23. The raised scorpion-like tail of the male has earned the scorpionflies a sinister reputation, but they do not sting. Interaction with humans. Forensic entomology makes use of scorpionflies' habit of feeding on human corpses. In areas where the family Panorpidae occurs, such as the eastern United States, these scorpionflies can be the first insects to arrive at a donated human cadaver, and remain on a corpse for 1 or 2 days. The presence of scorpionflies thus indicates that a body must be fresh. 32. 9. Scorpionflies are sometimes described as looking sinister, particularly from the male's raised tail, resembling a scorpion's sting. 33. A popular but incorrect belief is that they can sting with their tails. Mecoptera is an order of insects. It contains the alderflies, dobsonflies and fishflies, and there are about 300 known species. It contains the alderflies, dobsonflies and fishflies, and there are about 300 known species. Corydalis cornutus MHNT. The order's name comes from ancient Greek, from mega large, plus pteryx wing, in reference to the large, clumsy wings of these insects. Mecoptera are relatively unknown insects across much of their range. Due to the adults' short lives, the aquatic larvae often high tolerance of pollution, so they are not often encountered by swimmers etc., and the generally crepuscular or nocturnal habits. However, in the Americas the dobsonflies are rather well known, as their males have tusk-like mandibles. These, while formidable in appearance, are relatively harmless to humans and other animals. Much like a peacock's feathers, they serve mainly to impress females. However, the mandibles are also used to hold females during mating, and some male dobsonflies spar with each other in courtship displays, trying to flip each other over with their long mandibles. 1. Mecoptera. Temporal range. Alderfly of the genus Cialis. Scientific classification domain: Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta clade, Neuropterida. Order: Mecoptera. Latreille, 1802. Dobsonfly larvae, commonly called hellgramites, are often used for angling bait in North America. The Mecoptera were formerly considered part of a group then called Neuroptera, together with lacewings and snakeflies, but these are now generally considered to be separate orders, with Neuroptera referring to the lacewings and relatives which were formerly called Planopenia. The former Neuroptera, particularly the lacewing group, are nonetheless very closely related to each other, and the new name for this group is Neuropterida. 2. This is either placed at superorder rank, with the Holometabola, of which they are part, becoming an unranked clade above it, or the Holometabola are maintained as a superorder, with an unranked Neuropterida being a part of them. Within the Holometabolans, the closest living relatives of the Neuropteridan clade are the beetles. The Asian dobsonfly Acanthocoridalis frustorferi can have a wingspan of up to 21.6 centimeters, 8.5 in, making it the largest aquatic insect in the world by this measurement. 3. Anatomy and life cycle. Adult megalopterans closely resemble the lacewings, except for the presence of a pleated region on their hindwings, helping them to fold over the abdomen. They have strong mandibles and mouthparts apparently adapted for chewing, although many species do not eat as adults. They have large compound eyes, and, in some species, also have ocelli. The wings are large and subequal. 4. The female may lay up to 3,000 eggs in a single mass, placing them on vegetation overhanging water. Megaloptera undergo the most rudimentary form of complete metamorphosis among the insects. There are fewer differences between the larval and adult forms of Megaloptera than in any other order of holometabolous insects, and their aquatic larvae dwell in fresh water, around which the adults also live. The larvae are carnivorous, and are known to feed on small invertebrates, such as crustaceans, clams, worms and other insects. They possess strong jaws that they use to capture their prey. They have large heads and elongated bodies. The abdomen bears a number of fine tactile filaments, which, in some species, may include gills. The final segment of the abdomen bears either a pair of prolegs, or a single, tail-like appendage. 4. The larvae grow slowly, taking anywhere from 1 to 5 years to reach the last larval stage. When they reach maturity, the larvae crawl out onto land to pupate in damp soil or under logs. Unusually, the pupa is fully motile, with large mandibles that it can use to defend itself against predators. The short-lived adults emerge from the pupa to mate. Many species never feed as adults, living only a few days or hours, 4 up to a few weeks at most. 5. Evolution. Apart from the two living families, there are a few prehistoric taxa, sometimes placed Megaloptera, only known from fossils. Family Corydactylidae, 6 other authors place as members of Neuroptera, 7 Family Paragelidae, placement within the Neuropterida uncertain, 7. Family Eucaryotidae, other authors have suggested that this likely represents a Gryloblatid, instead, 8. Family Nonogelidae, 9 other authors consider this family more closely related to snakeflies, 10. The Megaloptera are monophyletic and are a sister clade of the Neuroptera. 11. Within the Megaloptera, Corydalinae and Chaliodinae are sister clades. The oldest fossils confidently identifiable as Megalopterans date to the early Jurassic. Snakefly. Snakeflies are a group of predatory insects comprising the order Raphidioptera with 2 extant families, Raphidiidae and Iniceliidae, consisting of roughly 260 species. In the past, the group had a much wider distribution than it does now. Snakeflies are found in temperate regions worldwide but are absent from the tropics and the southern hemisphere. Recognizable representatives of the group first appeared during the early Jurassic. They are a relict group, having reached their apex of diversity during the Cretaceous before undergoing substantial decline. An adult snakefly resembles a lacewing in appearance but has a notably elongated thorax which, together with the mobile head, gives the group their common name. The body is long and slender and the 2 pairs of long, membranous wings are prominently veined. Females have a large and sturdy ovipositor which is used to deposit eggs in some concealed location. They are holometabolous insects with a 4-stage life cycle consisting of eggs, larvae, pupae and adults. In most species, the larvae develop under the bark of trees. They may take several years before they undergo metamorphosis, requiring a period of chilling before pupation takes place. Both adults and larvae are predators of soft-bodied arthropods. Description. Wings of Raphidioptera showing colored pterostigmata. Adult snakeflies are easily distinguished from similar insects by having an elongated prothorax but not the modified forelegs of the mantis flies. Most species are between 15 and 30 millimeters, 0.6 and 1.2 in length. The head is long and flattened, and heavily sclerotized. It may be broad or taper at the back, but is very mobile. The mouthparts are strong and relatively unspecialized, being modified for biting. The large compound eyes are at the sides of the head. Members of the family Iniceliidae have no simple eyes. Members of the Raphidiidae do have such eyes, but are mostly differentiated by elimination, lacking the traits found in Iniceliids. The prothorax is notably elongated and mobile, giving the group its common name of snakefly. The 3 pairs of legs are similar in size and appearance. The 2 pair of dragonfly-like wings are similar in size, with a primitive venation pattern, a thickened leading edge, and a colored wingspot, the pterostigma. Iniceliids lack a cross vein in the pterostigma that is present in Raphidiids. The females in both families typically have a long ovipositor, which they use to deposit their eggs into crevices or under bark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Snakeflies are usually found in temperate coniferous forest. They are distributed widely around the globe, the majority of species occurring in Europe and Asia, but also being found in certain regions of Africa, Western North America and Central America. In Africa, they are only found in the mountains north of the Sahara Desert. In North America, they are found west of the Rocky Mountains, and range from southwest Canada all the way to the Mexican-Guatemalan border, which is the furthest south they have been found in the Western Hemisphere. In the Eastern Hemisphere, they can be found from Spain to Japan. Many species are found throughout Europe and Asia, with the southern edge of their range in northern Thailand and northern India. 5. Snakeflies have a relic distribution, having had a more widespread range and being more diverse in the past. There are more species in Central Asia than anywhere else. 3. In the southern parts of their range, they are largely restricted to higher altitudes, up to around 3,000 meters, 10,000 feet. 4. Even though this insect order is widely distributed, the range of individual species is often very limited and some species are confined to a single mountain range. 6. Snakefly. Temporal range. Female Dicrostigma flavipes. Scientific classification domain: Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta clade, Neuropterida order, Raphidioptera. Handler's, 1908. Life cycle. Larva. Snakeflies are holometabolous insects, having a 4-stage life cycle with eggs, larvae, pupae and adults. Before mating, the adults engage in an elaborate courtship ritual, including a grooming behavior involving legs and antennae. In Raphidiids, mating takes place in a dragging position, while in Iniceliids, the male adopts a tandem position under the female. Copulation may last for up to 3 hours in some Iniceliid species. The eggs are oviposited into suitable locations and hatch in from a few days to about 3 weeks. 4. The larvae have large heads with projecting mandibles. The head and the first segment of the thorax are sclerotized, but the rest of the body is soft and fleshy. They have 3 pairs of true legs, but no prolegs. However, they do possess an adhesive organ on the abdomen, which they can use to fasten themselves to vertical surfaces. 1. There is no set number of instars the larva will go through. Some species can have as many as 10 or 11. The larval stage usually lasts for 2 to 3 years, but in some species can extend for 6 years. 5. The final larval instar, the prepupal stage, creates a cell in which the insect pupates. The pupa is able to bite when disturbed, and shortly before the adult emerges, it gains the ability to walk and often leaves its cell for another location. 7. All snakeflies require a period of cool temperatures, probably around 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, to induce pupation. 5. The length of the pupation stage is variable. Most species pupate in the spring or early summer, and take a few days to 3 weeks before ecdysis. If the larvae begin pupation in the late summer or early fall, they can take up to 10 months before the adults emerge. 5. Insects reared at constant temperatures in a laboratory may become prothotellus, developing the compound eyes and wing pads of pupae, but living for years without completing metamorphosis. 4. Ecology. Adult snakeflies are territorial and carnivorous organisms. They are diurnal and are important predators of aphids and mites. Pollen has also been found in the guts of these organisms, and it is unclear whether they require pollen for part of their life cycle or if it is a favored food source. 5. 4. The larvae of many Raphidiids live immediately below the bark of trees, although others live around the tree bole, in crevices in rocks, among leaf litter and in detritus. Here they feed on the eggs and larvae of other arthropods such as mites, springtails, spiders, bark lice, sternorhynchids and ochenorhynchids. 3. The actual diets of the larvae vary according to their habitats, but both larvae and adults are efficient predators. 4. Predators of snakeflies include birds. In Europe, these are woodland species such as the treecreeper, great spotted woodpecker, wood warbler, nuthatch, and dunnock, as well as generalist insect-eating species such as the collared flycatcher. 8. Typically 5 to 15% of snakefly larvae are parasitized, mainly by parasitoid wasps, but rates as high as 50% have been observed in some species. 5. Evolution. During the Mesozoic era, 252 to 66 Maya, there was a large and diverse fauna of Raphidioptera as exemplified by the abundant fossils that have been found in all parts of the world. This came to an abrupt end at the end of the Cretaceous period, likely as a result of the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, 66 Maya, when an enormous asteroid is thought to have hit the Earth. This seems to have extinguished all but the most cold-tolerant species of snakefly, resulting in the extinction of the majority of families, including all the tropical and subtropical species. The 2 families of present-day Raphidioptera are thus relict populations of this previously widespread group. 4. They have been considered living fossils, because modern-day species closely resemble species from the early Jurassic period, 140 Maya. 6. There are about 260 extant species. 5. Fossil history. Several extinct families are known only from fossils dating from the lower Jurassic to the Miocene. 9. The great majority of them belonging to the suborder Raphidiomorpha. 9. The transitional middle Jurassic Jurorophidiidae form a clade with the Raphidiomorpha. 10. Jurorophidia longicolum. Jurorophidiidae transitional fossil of middle Jurassic age, from China. 10. Amarantorophidia, Mesaurophytida. In early Cretaceous amber, Spain. Omelacophini, Raphidiidae, from the Miocene of France. Phylogeny. Molecular analysis using mitochondrial RNA and the mitogenome has clarified the group's phylogeny within the Neuropterida, as shown in the cladogram. 11. 12. Neuropterida. Raphidioptera, snakeflies. Megaloptera, alderflies and allies. Neuroptera. Osmilidae, giant lacewings. Hemerobioformia, lacewings. Myrmeleontiformia, antlions and allies. The name Raphidioptera is formed from Greek raphis, meaning needle, and pteron, meaning wing. 13. The Megaloptera, Neuroptera in the modern sense, and Raphidioptera are very closely related, forming the group Neuropterida. 14. This is either placed at superorder rank, with the holometable genus Vermobiusoptera Liu, Zhang, Wang, Engel, and Liu, 2020 Burmese amber, mid Possible biological pest control agents. Snakeflies have been considered a viable option for biological control of agricultural pests. The main advantage is that they have few predators, and both adults and larvae are predaceous. A disadvantage is that snakeflies have a long larval period, so their numbers increase only slowly, and it could take a long time to rid crops of pests. Another issue is that they prey on a limited range of pest species. 6. An unidentified North American species was introduced into Australia and New Zealand in the early 20th century for this purpose, but failed to become established. 4. Snakeflies have been considered a viable option for biological control of agricultural pests. The main advantage is that they have few predators, and both adults and larvae are predaceous. A disadvantage is that snakeflies have a long larval period, so their numbers increase only slowly, and it could take a long time to rid crops of pests. Another issue is that they prey on a limited range of pest species. 6. An unidentified North American species was introduced into Australia and New Zealand in the early 20th century for this purpose, but failed to become established. 4. References. Caddisfly. The caddisflies, or order Trichoptera, are a group of insects with aquatic larvae and terrestrial adults. There are approximately 14,500 described species, most of which can be divided into the suborders Integrapalpia and Annulipalpia on the basis of the adult mouthparts. Integrapalpian larvae construct a portable casing to protect themselves as they move around looking for food, while Annulipalpian larvae make themselves a fixed retreat in which they remain, waiting for food to come to them. The affinities of the small third suborder Spicipalpia are unclear, and molecular analysis suggests it. The affinities of the small third suborder Spicipalpia are unclear, and molecular analysis suggests it may not be monophyletic. Also called sedgeflies or railflies, the adults are small moth-like insects with two pairs of hairy membranous wings. They are closely related to the Lepidoptera, moths and butterflies, which have scales on their wings. The two orders together form the superorder Amphismenoptera. The aquatic larvae are found in a wide variety of habitats such as streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, spring seeps and temporary waters, vernal pools, and even the ocean. 1, 2, 3. The larvae of many species use silk to make protective cases, which are often strengthened with gravel, sand, twigs, bitten off pieces of plants, or other debris. The larvae exhibit various feeding strategies, with different species being predators, leaf shredders, algal grazers, or collectors of particles from the water column and benthos. Most adults have short lives during which they do not feed. In fly fishing, artificial flies called dry flies are tied to imitate adults, while larvae and pupae are imitated with artificial flies called wet flies or nymphs. It is also possible to use them as bait, though this is not as common as artificial flies and is known as bait fishing. Common and widespread genera such as Helicocyke and Hydrocyke are important in the sport, where caddisflies are known as sedges. Caddisflies are useful as bioindicators, as they are sensitive to water pollution and are large enough to be assessed in the field. In art, the French artist Hubert Duprat has created works by providing caddis larvae with small grains of gold and precious stones for them to build into decorative cases. Etymology. The name of the order, Trichoptera, derives from the Greek thrix, hair, genitive trichos plus pteron, wing, and refers to the fact that the wings of these insects are bristly. The origin of the word, caddis, is unclear, but it dates back to at least as far as Isaac Walton's 1653 book The Complete Angler, where codworms or caddis were mentioned as being used as bait. The term caddis was being used in the 15th century for silk or cotton cloth, and caddis men were itinerant vendors of such materials, but a connection between these words and the insects has not been established. 4. Eocene fossil in Baltic amber, Lithuania, 44 Maya. Fossil history. Fossil caddisflies have been found in rocks dating back to the Triassic. 5. The largest numbers of fossilized remains are those of larval cases, which are made of durable materials that preserve well. Body fossils of caddisflies are extremely rare, the oldest being from the early and middle Triassic, some 230 million years ago, and wings are another source of fossils. 6. The evolution of the group to one with fully aquatic larvae seems to have taken place sometime during the Triassic. 7. The finding of fossils resembling caddisfly larval cases in marine deposits in Brazil may push back the origins of the order to the early Permian period. 6. Evolution. Nearly all adult caddisflies are terrestrial, but their larvae and pupae are aquatic. They share this characteristic with caddisflies. Temporal range. Scientific classification domain, Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta. Unranked, Amphismenoptera. Order, Trichoptera. Kirby, 1813. Several distantly related groups, namely the dragonflies, mayflies, stoneflies, alderflies and lacewings. 7. The Ancestors of all these groups were terrestrial, with open tracheal systems, convergently evolving different types of gills for their aquatic larvae as they took to the water to avoid predation. 7. Caddisflies was the only group of these insects to use silk as part of their lifestyle, which has been a contributing factor to their success and why they are the most species-rich order of aquatic insects. 8. About 14,500 species of caddisfly in 45 families have been recognized worldwide. 9. But many more species remain to be described. Most can be divided into the suborders Integrapalpia and Annulipalpia on the basis of the adult mouthparts. The characteristics of adults depend on the palps, wing venation and genitalia of both sexes. The latter two characters have undergone such extensive differentiation among the different superfamilies that the differences between the suborders is not clear-cut. 10. The larvae of Annulipalpians are campodiform, free-living, well-sclerotized, long-legged predators with dorso-ventrally flattened bodies and protruding mouthparts. The larvae of Integrapalpians are polypod, poorly sclerotized detritivores, with abdominal prolegs in addition to thoracic legs, living permanently in tight-fitting cases. 10. The affinities of the third suborder, Spicipalpia, are unclear. The larvae are free-living with no cases, instead creating net-like traps from silk. 4. Phylogeny. The cladogram of external relationships, based on molecular analysis, shows the order is a clade, sister to the Lepidoptera, and more distantly related to the Diptera, true flies, and Mecoptera, scorpion flies. 11. Rhyacophyloidea. Distribution. Caddisflies are found worldwide, with the greater diversity being in warmer regions. They are associated with bodies of freshwater, the larvae being found in lakes, ponds, rivers, streams and other water bodies. 13. The land caddis, a Noisylopacilla family, Limnaphilidae, lives in the damp litter of the woodland floor. In the United Kingdom it is found in and around the county of Worcestershire in oakwoods. 14. Ecology. Larva in its underwater habitat. Caddisfly larvae can be found in all feeding guilds in freshwater habitats. Most early-stage larvae and some late-stage ones are collector-gatherers, picking up fragments of organic matter from the benthos. Other species are collector-filterers, sieving organic particles from the water using silken nets, or hairs on their legs. Some species are scrapers, feeding on the film of algae and other periphyton that grows on underwater objects in sunlight. Others are shredder herbivores, chewing fragments off living plant material, while others are shredder detritivores, gnawing at rotting wood or chewing dead leaves that have been pre-processed by bacteria and fungi. Most of the nutrients of the latter group come from consumption of the bacteria and fungi. The predatory species either actively hunt their prey, typically other insects, tiny crustaceans and worms, or lie in wait for unwary invertebrates to come too close. A few species feed opportunistically on dead animals or fish, and some Leptoceridae larvae feed on freshwater sponges. 15. One such opportunistic species is Gumaga nigricula family, Ceracostomatidae, which has been observed scavenging fish carcasses and even bits of deer flesh. 16. This particular family of caddisflies is typically classified among the shredders, suggesting caution when classifying macroinvertebrates into strict ecological functional groups, as some may shift their diets opportunistically. 17. Like mayflies, stoneflies and dragonflies, but to a somewhat lesser extent, caddisflies are an indicator of good water quality. They die out of streams with polluted waters. 17. They are an important part of the food web, both larvae and adults being eaten by many fish. The newly hatched adult is particularly vulnerable as it struggles to the surface after emerging from the submerged pupa, and as it dries its wings. The fish find these new adults easy pickings, and fishing flies resembling them can be successful for anglers at the right time of year. 18. Ecology. Larvae in its underwater habitat. Caddisfly larvae can be found in all feeding guilds in freshwater habitats. Most early-stage larvae and some late-stage ones are collector-gatherers, picking up fragments of organic matter from the benthos. Other species are collector-filterers, sieving organic particles from the water using silken nets, or hairs on their legs. Some species are scrapers, feeding on the film of algae and other periphyton that grows on underwater objects in sunlight. Others are shredder herbivores, chewing fragments off living plant material, while others are shredder detritivores, gnawing at rotting wood or chewing dead leaves that have been pre-processed by bacteria and fungi. Most of the nutrients of the latter group come from consumption of the bacteria and fungi. The predatory species either actively hunt their prey, typically other insects, tiny crustaceans and worms, or lie in wait for unwary invertebrates to come too close. A few species feed opportunistically on dead animals or fish, and some Leptoceridae larvae feed on freshwater sponges. 15. One such opportunistic species is Gumaga nigricula family, Ceracostomatidae, which has been observed scavenging fish carcasses and even bits of deer flesh. 16. This particular family of caddisflies is typically classified among the shredders, suggesting caution when classifying macroinvertebrates into strict ecological functional groups, as some may shift their diets opportunistically. 16. Like mayflies, stoneflies and dragonflies, but to a somewhat lesser extent, caddisflies are an indicator of good water quality. They die out of streams with polluted waters. 17. They are an important part of the food web, both larvae and adults being eaten by many fish. The newly hatched adult is particularly vulnerable as it struggles to the surface after emerging from the submerged pupa, and as it dries its wings. The fish find these new adults easy pickings, and fishing flies resembling them can be successful for anglers at the right time of year. 18. The adult stage of a caddisfly may only survive for a few weeks. Many species do not feed as adults and die soon after breeding, but some species are known to feed on nectar. 19. The winged insects are nocturnal and provide food for night-flying birds, bats, small mammals, amphibians and arthropods. The larval stage lasts much longer, often for 1 or more years, and has a bigger impact on the environment. 20. They form an important part of the diet of fish such as the trout. The fish acquire them by 2 means, either plucking them off vegetation or the stream bed as the larvae move about, or during the daily behavioral drift. This drift happens during the night for many species of aquatic larvae, or around midday for some cased caddisfly species, and may result from population pressures or be a dispersal device. The larvae may drift in great numbers either close to the bottom, in mid-water or just below the surface. The fish swallow them whole, case and all. 21. Underwater structures. Cases. Caddisflies are best known for the portable cases created by their larvae. About 30 families of caddisfly, members of the suborder Integrapalpia, adopt this stratagem. These larvae eat detritus, largely decaying vegetable material, and the dead leaf fragments on which they feed tend to accumulate in hollows, in slow-moving sections of streams and behind stones and tree roots. The cases provide protection to the larvae as they make their way between these resources. 22. The case is a tubular structure made of silk, secreted from salivary glands near the mouth of the larva, and is started soon after the egg hatches. Various reinforcements may be incorporated into its structure, the nature of the materials and design depending on the larva's genetic makeup. This means that caddisfly larvae can be recognized by their cases down to family, and even genus level. The materials used include grains of sand, larger fragments of rock, bark, sticks, leaves, seeds and mollusk shells. These are neatly arranged and stuck onto the outer surface of the silken tube. As the larva grows, more material is added at the front, and the larva can turn round in the tube and trim the rear end so that it does not drag along the substrate. 22. Caddisfly cases are open at both ends, the larva drawing oxygenated water through the posterior end, over their gills, and pumping it out of the wider, anterior end. The larvae move around inside the tubes and this helps maintain the water current. The lower the oxygen content of the water, the more active the larvae need to be. This mechanism enables caddisfly larvae to live in waters too low in oxygen content to support stonefly and mayfly larvae. 19. Larva with portable case of rock. Fragments. Larva emerging from case made of plant material. Larval case of Limnephilidae made of bitten off plant pieces. Case of Limnephilus flavicornis made of snail shells. Fixed retreats. In contrast to larvae that have portable cases, members of the Annulipalpia have a completely different feeding strategy. They make fixed retreats in which they remain stationary, waiting for food to come to them. Members of the Sycameidae, Echnomyidae and Xiphocentronidae families construct simple tubes of sand and other particles held together by silk and anchored to the bottom, and feed on the accumulations of silt formed when suspended material is deposited. The tube can be lengthened when the growing larva needs to feed in new areas. 23. More complex tubes, short and flattened, are built by Polycentropidae larvae in hollows in rocks or other submerged objects, sometimes with strands of silk suspended across the nearby surface. These larvae are carnivorous, resembling spiders in their feeding habits and rushing out of their retreat to attack any unwary small prey crawling across the surface. 23. Silk domes. Larvae of members of the family Glossosomatidae in the suborder Spicipalpia create dome-shaped enclosures of silk which enables them to graze on the paraphyton, the biological film that grows on stones and other objects, while carrying their enclosure around like turtles. 24. In the family Philopotamidae, the nets are sac-like, with intricate structure and tiny mesh. The larvae have specialized mouthparts to scrape off the microflora that get trapped in the net as water flows through. 25. Nets. Net made by a larva of the suborder Spicipalpia. The larvae of other species of caddisfly make nets rather than cases. These are silken webs stretching between aquatic vegetation and over stones. These net-making larvae usually live in running water, different species occupying different habitats with varying water speeds. There is a constant drift of invertebrates washed downstream by the current, and these animals, and bits of debris, accumulate in the nets which serve both as food traps and as retreats. 26. Development and morphology. Caddisfly larvae are aquatic, with 6 pairs of tracheal gills on the underside of the abdomen. The eggs are laid above water on emergent twigs or vegetation or on the water surface, although females of some species enter water to choose sites. Although most species lay eggs, a few in the genus Triplectides are ovoviviparous. Some species lay eggs on land, and although most are associated with freshwater, a few like Symphytoneri are found in coastal saline water. Phalaenopsis plebeus females lay their eggs into the coulommic cavity of intertidal starfish. 27. The larvae are long and roughly cylindrical, very similar to those of Lepidoptera but lacking prolegs. 27. In case-bearing species, the heads are heavily sclerotized while the abdomen is soft, the antennae are short and the mouthparts adapted for biting. Each of the usually 10 abdominal segments bears a pair of legs with a single tarsal joint. In case-bearing species, the first segment bears 3 papillae, 1 above and 2 at the sides, which anchor the larva centrally in the tube. The posterior segment bears a pair of hooks for grappling. 19. There are 5 to 7 larval instars, followed by an aquatic pupa which has functional mandibles to cut through the case gills, and swimming legs. 9. The pupal cocoon is spun from silk, but like the larval case, often has other materials attached. When pupating, species that build portable cases attach them to some underwater object, seal the front and back apertures against predators while still allowing water to flow through, and pupate within it. Once fully developed, most pupal caddisflies cut through their cases with a special pair of mandibles, swim up to the water surface, molt using the exuvia as a floating platform, and emerge as fully formed adults. They can often fly immediately after breaking from their pupal cuticle. Emergence is mainly univoltine, once per year, with all the adults of a species emerging at the same time. Development is within a year in warm places, but takes over a year in high latitudes and at high elevation in mountain lakes and streams. 9. The adult caddisfly is a medium-sized insect with membranous, hairy wings, which are held in a tent-wise fashion when the insect is at rest. The antennae are fairly long and thread-like, the mouthparts are reduced in size and the legs have 5 tarsi, lower leg joints. 19. Adults are nocturnal and are attracted to light. Some species are strong flyers and can disperse to new localities. 26. But many fly only weakly. 19. Adults are usually short-lived, most being non-feeders and equipped only to breed. Once mated, the female caddisfly lays eggs in a gelatinous mass, attaching them above or below the water surface depending on species. The eggs hatch in a few weeks. 28. Egg mass on leaf away from water. Pupa with oar-like swimming legs. Pupae. Parachina piscicornis adult emerging from aquatic pupa. Adult. Relationship with humans. Silver sedge, fishing fly mimicking Lepidostoma caddisfly, from trout fly fishing in America. Limnephalus elegans, the elegant granum, from British entomology by John Curtis, circa 1840. In angling. Adult caddisflies are called sedges by anglers. Individual species emerge en masse at different times, and are used one after the other, often for only a few days each year, as models for artificial fishing flies for fly fishing in trout streams. 14. A mass emergence is known as a hatch. 29. Each type has its own angling name, so for example Mysticides is the dancer, Sericostoma the caperer, Leptoceras the silverhorn, Phryginia the mirage or great red sedge, Brachycentrus subnubilis the granum, Lepidostoma the silver sedge, 14. Esetus the longhorn sedge, Chumatocyke the little sister sedge, Helicocyke the speckled peter, an important fishing fly in North America, and Hydrocyke the specked sedge, perhaps the most important caddisfly genus for anglers with over 50 species of net makers. 29. As bioindicators. Caddisflies are useful as bioindicators of good water quality, since they are sensitive to water pollution, and are large enough to be assessed conveniently in the field. 30. Some species indicate undisturbed habitat, and some indicate degraded habitat. 31. Although caddisflies may be found in water bodies of varying qualities, species-rich caddisfly assemblages are generally thought to indicate clean water bodies, such as lakes, ponds, and marshes. Together with stoneflies and mayflies, caddisflies feature importantly in bioassessment surveys of streams and other water bodies. 32. In art. While caddisflies in the wild construct their cases out of twigs, sand, aquatic plants, and rocks, the French artist Hubert Duprat makes art by providing wild caddisflies with precious stones and other materials. He collected caddisfly larvae from the wild and put them in climate-controlled tanks. He removes the larvae from their original cases and adds precious and semi-precious items such as grains of gold into the tank. The larvae then build new cases out of precious items, creating a unique form of artwork. The resulting works are sold across the world. 33. As food. In Japan, the larvae of Stenocyte marmorata are eaten as a delicacy called zazamushi. 34. Taxonomy. There are roughly 16,266 extant species in 618 genera and 51 families worldwide. Aquatic insect. Aquatic insects or water insects live some portion of their life cycle in the water. They feed in the same ways as other insects. Some diving insects, such as predatory diving beetles, can hunt for food underwater where land-living insects cannot compete. A water beetle. A whirligig beetle. Breathing. One problem that aquatic insects must overcome is how to get oxygen while they are underwater. Almost all animals require a source of oxygen to live. Insects draw air into their bodies through spiracles, holes found along the sides of the abdomen. These spiracles are connected to tracheal tubes where oxygen can be absorbed. All aquatic insects have become adapted to their environment with the specialization of these structures. Aquatic adaptations. 1. Simple diffusion over a relatively thin integument. 2. Temporary use of an air bubble. 3. Extraction of oxygen from water using a plastron or blood gill. 4. Storage of oxygen in hemoglobin and hemocyanin molecules in hemolymph. 1, 2. 5. Taking oxygen from surface via breathing tubes, siphons, the nymphs of the hemimetabolous orders mayflies, dragonflies and stoneflies, and the larvae of the holometabolous orders megalopterans and caddisflies, possess tracheal gills, which are outgrowths of the body wall containing a dense network of tracheae covered by a thin cuticle through which oxygen in the water can diffuse. 3, 4, 5. Some insects have densely packed hairs, setae, around the spiracles that allow air to remain near, while keeping water away from, the body. The trachea open through spiracles into this air film, allowing access to oxygen. In many such cases, when the insect dives into the water, it carries a layer of air over parts of its surface, and breathes using this trapped air bubble until it is depleted, then returns to the surface to repeat the process. Other types of insects have a plastron or physical gill that can be various combinations of hairs, scales, and undulations projecting from the cuticle, which hold a thin layer of air along the outer surface of the body. In these insects, the volume of the film is small enough, and their respiration slow enough, that diffusion from the surrounding water is enough to replenish the oxygen in the pocket of air as fast as it is used. The large proportion of nitrogen in the air dissolves in water slowly and maintains the gas volume, supporting oxygen diffusion. Insects of this type only rarely need to replenish their supply of air. 6. Other aquatic insects can remain underwater for long periods due to high concentrations of hemoglobin in their hemolymph circulating freely within their body. Hemoglobin bonds strongly to oxygen molecules. 7. A few insects such as water scorpions and mosquito larvae have breathing tubes, siphons, with the opening surrounded by hydrofuge hairs, allowing them to breathe without having to leave the water. Orders with aquatic or semi-aquatic species. Collembola springtails, which are not technically insects, but are closely related, Ephemeroptera mayflies. Odonata dragonflies and damselflies. Plecoptera stoneflies. Megaloptera alderflies, fishflies, and Dobsonflies Neuroptera lacewings. Coleoptera beetles. Hemiptera true bugs, water striders, giant water bugs. Hymenoptera ants, e.g. Polyrachis sokolova, and wasps, e.g. Microgaster godzilla, Diptera flies. Mecoptera scorpionflies. Lepidoptera moths. Trichoptera caddisflies. EPT insects, an acronym for Ephemeroptera, Plecoptera and Trichoptera mayflies, stoneflies and caddisflies, are sensitive to pollutants and are used as an indicator of water quality in streams, rivers and lakes. 8. Marine aquatic insects. The aquatic insects live mostly in freshwater habitats since there are very few marine insect species. 9. The only true example of such insects are the sea skaters, which belongs to the Hemiptera order. References. 1. Worowski, A. Matthews, P.G. Gleiksner, E. Kiger, L. Martin, M.C. Henkeln, T. Burmester, T. 2012. Characterization of the hemoglobin of the backswimmer Anisops dione, Hemiptera. Insect Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. 42, 9, 603-609. doi, 10.1016/j.ibm.2012.04.007. 007. PMID 22575160. 2. Gamboa, M. 2020. Termite. Termites are a group of detridophagous eusocial insects which consume a variety of decaying plant material, generally in the form of wood, leaf litter, and soil humus. They are distinguished by their maniliform antennae and the soft-bodied and often unpigmented worker caste for which they have been commonly termed white ants. However, they are not ants, to which they are only distantly related. 3. About 2,972 extant species are currently described, 2,105 of which are members of the family Termitidae. Termites comprise the infraorder Isoptera, or alternatively the epifamily Termitoidae, within the order Blatodia, along with cockroaches. Termites were once classified in a separate order from cockroaches, but recent phylogenetic studies indicate that they evolved from cockroaches, as they are deeply nested within the group, and the sister group to wood-eating cockroaches of the genus Cryptocercus. Previous estimates suggested the divergence took place during the Jurassic or Triassic. More recent estimates suggest that they have an origin during the late Jurassic, with the first fossil records in the early Cretaceous. Similarly to ants and some bees and wasps from the separate order Hymenoptera, most termites have an analogous worker and soldier caste system consisting of mostly sterile individuals which are physically and behaviorally distinct. Unlike ants, most colonies begin from sexually mature individuals known as the king and queen that together form a lifelong monogamous pair. 5. Also unlike ants, which undergo a complete metamorphosis, termites undergo an incomplete metamorphosis that proceeds through egg, nymph, and adult stages. Termite colonies are commonly described as superorganisms due to the collective behaviors of the individuals which form a self-governing entity, the colony itself. 6. Their colonies range in size from a few hundred individuals to enormous societies with several million individuals. Most species are rarely seen, having a cryptic life history where they remain hidden within the galleries and tunnels of their nests for most of their lives. Termites' success as a group has led to them colonizing almost every global landmass, with the highest diversity occurring in the tropics where they are estimated to constitute 10% of the animal biomass, particularly in Africa which has the richest diversity with more than 1,000 described species. 7. They are important decomposers of decaying plant matter in the subtropical and tropical regions of the world, and the recycling of wood and plant matter is of considerable ecological importance. Many species are ecosystem engineers capable of altering soil characteristics such as hydrology, decomposition, nutrient cycling, vegetative growth, and consequently surrounding biodiversity through the large mounds constructed by certain species. 8. Termites have several impacts on humans. They are a delicacy in the diet of some human cultures such as the Mecoptera in the Alto Orinoco province of Venezuela, where they are commonly used as a spice. 9. They are also used in traditional medicinal treatments of various diseases and ailments, such as influenza, asthma, bronchitis, etc. 10. 11. Termites are most famous for being structural pests. However, the vast majority of termite species are innocuous, with the regional numbers of economically significant species being North America, 9, Australia, 16, Indian subcontinent, 26, tropical Africa, 24, Central America and the West Indies, 17. Of known pest species, 28 of the most invasive and structurally damaging belong to the genus Coptoderms. 12. The distribution of most known pest species is expected to increase over time as a consequence of climate change. 13. Increased urbanization and connectivity is also predicted to expand the range of some pest termites. 14. The infraorder name Isoptera is derived from the Greek words iso, equal, and ptera, winged, which refers to the nearly equal size of the fore and hind wings. 15. Termite derives from the Latin and late Latin word termes, woodworm, white ant, altered by the influence of Latin terrier, to rub, wear, erode, from the earlier word termite. Temporal range. Formosan subterranean termite Coptoderms. Formosanus, soldiers, red-colored heads, workers, pale-colored heads. Scientific classification domain, Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta cohort, Polyneoptera superorder, Dictyoptera order, Blatodia. Infraorder, Isoptera. Bruyère, 1832. Families. Etymology. Termes. A termite nest is also known as a termitary or termitarium, plural termitaria or termitariums. 16. The word was first used in English in 1781. 17. Earlier attested designations were wood ants or white ants. 18. Though these may never have been in wide use as termites do not exist in the British Isles. The external appearance of the giant northern termite Mastodon darwiniensis is suggestive of the close relationship between termites and cockroaches. Termites were formerly placed in the order Isoptera. As early as 1934, suggestions were made that they were closely related to wood-eating cockroaches, genus Cryptocercus, the woodroach, based on the similarity of their symbiotic gut flagellates. 19. In the 1960s, additional evidence supporting that hypothesis emerged when F. A. McKittrick noted similar morphological characteristics between somatermites and Cryptocercus nymphs. 20. In 2008, DNA analysis from 16 srRNA sequences. 21. Supported position of termites being nested within the evolutionary tree containing the order Blatodia, which included the cockroaches. 22. 23. The cockroach genus Cryptocercus shares the strongest phylogenetical similarity with termites and is considered to be a sister group to termites. 24. 25. Termites and Cryptocercus share similar morphological and social features. For example, most cockroaches do not exhibit social characteristics, but Cryptocercus takes care of its young and exhibits other social behavior such as trophallaxis and allogrooming. 26. Termites are thought to be the descendants of the genus Cryptocercus. 22. 27. Some researchers have suggested a more conservative measure of retaining the termites is the Termitoideae, an epifamily within the cockroach order, which preserves the classification of termites at family level and below. 28. Cratomastoderm. Termites have long been accepted to be closely related to cockroaches and mantids, and they are classified in the same superorder Dictyoptera. 29. 30. The oldest unambiguous termite fossils date to the early Cretaceous, but given the diversity of Cretaceous termites and early fossil records showing mutualism between microorganisms and these insects, they possibly originated earlier in the Jurassic or Triassic. 31, 32, 33. Possible evidence of a Jurassic origin is the assumption that the extinct mammaliform Fruitifossor from Morrison Formation consumed termites, judging from its morphological similarity to modern termite-eating mammals. 34. Morrison Formation also yields social insect nest fossils close to that of termites. 35. The oldest termite nest discovered is believed to be from the Upper Cretaceous in West Texas, where the oldest known fecal pellets were also discovered. 36. Claims that termites emerged earlier have faced controversy. For example, F.M. Wiesner indicated that the Mastodormidae termites may go back to the late Permian, 251 million years ago. 37. And fossil wings that have a close resemblance to the wings of Mastodorms of the Mastodormidae, the most primitive living termite, have been discovered in the Permian layers in Kansas. 38. It is even possible that the first termites emerged during the Carboniferous. 39. The folded wings of the fossil wood roach Pycnoblatina, arranged in a convex pattern between segments 1A and 2A, resemble those seen in Mastodorms, the only living insect with the same pattern. 38. Kumar Krishna et al. Though considered that all of the Paleozoic and Triassic insects tentatively classified as termites are in fact unrelated to termites and should be excluded from the Isoptera. 40. Other studies suggest that the origin of termites is more recent, having diverged from Cryptocercus sometime during the early Cretaceous. 4. Macro image of a worker. The primitive giant northern termite Mastodorms darwiniensis exhibits numerous cockroach-like characteristics that are not shared with other termites, such as laying its eggs in rafts and having anal lobes on the wings. 41. It has been proposed that the Isoptera and Cryptocercidae be grouped in the clade, Xylophagidae. 42. Termites are sometimes called white ants, but the only resemblance to the ants is due to their sociality, which is due to convergent evolution. 43. 44. With termites being the first social insects to evolve a caste system more than 100 million years ago. 45. Termite genomes are generally relatively large compared to those of other insects. The first fully sequenced termite genome, of Zeudermopsis nevadensis, which was published in the journal Nature Communications. Bifurcated caste development with true workers, and so notably lack suitor gates, except in some basal taxa such as Ceratermitidae. See below. All Neoisopterans have a fontanelle, which appears as a circular pore or series of pores in a depressed region within the middle of the head. The fontanelle connects to the frontal gland, a novel organ unique to Neoisopteran termites which evolved to excrete an array of defensive chemicals and secretions, and so is typically most developed in the soldier caste. 52. Cellulose digestion in the family Termitidae has co-evolved with bacterial gut microbiota. 53. And many taxa have evolved additional symbiotic relationships such as with the fungus Termitomyces. In contrast, basal Neoisopterans and all other Eusoptera have flagellates and prokaryotes in their hindguts. Extant families and subfamilies are organized as follows. 49. 54. Early diverging Neoisoptera, non-Geoisoptera. Distribution and diversity. Termites are found on all continents except Antarctica. The diversity of termite species is low in North America and Europe, 10 species known in Europe and 50 in North America, but is high in South America, where over 400 species are known. 55. Of the 2,972 extant termite species currently classified, 1,000 are found in Africa, where mounds are extremely abundant in certain regions. Approximately 1.1 million active termite mounds can be found in the northern Kruger National Park alone. 56. In Asia, there are 435 species of termites, which are mainly distributed in China. Within China, termite species are restricted to mild tropical and subtropical habitats south of the Yangtze River. 55. In Australia, all ecological groups of termites dampwood, dreewood, subterranean are endemic to the country, with over 360 classified species. 55. Because termites are highly social and abundant, they represent a disproportionate amount of the world's insect biomass. Termites and ants comprise about 1% of insect species, but represent more than 50% of insect biomass. 57. Due to their soft cuticles, termites do not inhabit cool or cold habitats. 58. There are 3 ecological groups of termites: dampwood, dreewood and subterranean. Dampwood termites are found only in coniferous forests, and dreewood termites are found in hardwood forests. Subterranean termites live in widely diverse areas. 55. One species in the dreewood group is the West Indian dreewood termite, Cryptoderms brevis, which is an invasive species in Australia. 59. Diversity of Isoptera by continent. Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe, Australia. Estimated number of species 435 1050 400 103. Description. General anatomy of a worker termite with imago, reproductive, and soldier visualized. Note the reduction and fusion of sclerites on the thorax and more membranous body compared to other Dictyoptera. Mandible. Descriptive terminology on the bottom right. The fontanelle is absent in basal termites, being found only in Neoisopteran termites. Termites are usually small, measuring between 4 and 15 millimeters, 3/16 and 9/16 in length. 55. The largest of all extant termites are the queens of the species Macroderms bellicosus, measuring up to over 10 centimeters, 4 in length. 60. Another giant termite, the extinct Gyodorms styriensis, flourished in Austria during the Miocene and had a wingspan of 76 millimeters, 3 in, and a body length of 25 millimeters, 1 in. 61. Note 1. Most worker and soldier termites are completely blind as they do not have a pair of eyes. However, some species, such as Hododerms mossambicus, have compound eyes which they use for orientation and to distinguish sunlight from moonlight. 62. The elates, winged males and females, have eyes along with lateral ocelli. Lateral ocelli, however, are not found in all termites, absent in the families Hododermidae, Termopsidae, and Archodermopsidae. 63. 64. Like other insects, termites have a small tongue-shaped labrum and a clypeus. The clypeus is divided into a postclypeus and anteclypeus. Termite antennae have a number of functions such as the sensing of touch, taste, odors, including pheromones, heat, and vibration. The three basic segments of a termite antenna include a scape, a pedicel typically shorter than the scape, and the flagellum, all segments beyond the scape and pedicel. 64. The mouth parts contain a maxillae, a labium, and a set of mandibles. The maxillae and labium have palps that help termites sense food and handling. 64. The cuticle of most casts is soft and flexible due to a resulting lack of sclerotization, particularly of the abdomen, which often appears translucent. Pigmentation and sclerotization of the cuticle correlates with life history, with species that spend more time in the surface in the open tending to have a more sclerotized and pigmented exoskeleton. Consistent with all insects, the anatomy of the termite thorax consists of three segments, the prothorax, the mesothorax, and the metathorax. 64. Each segment contains a pair of legs. On elates, the wings are located at the mesothorax and metathorax, which is consistent with all four winged insects. The mesothorax and metathorax have well-developed exoskeletal plates. The prothorax has smaller plates. 65. Diagram showing a wing, along with the clypeus and leg. Termites have a 10-segmented abdomen with two plates, the tergites and the sternites. 66. The 10th abdominal segment has a pair of short cerci. 67. There are 10 tergites, of which 9 are wide and 1 is elongated. 68. The reproductive organs are similar to those in cockroaches but are more simplified. For example, the intromittent organ is not present in male elates, and the sperm is either immotile or a flagellate. However, Mastodermidae termites have multiflagellate sperm with limited motility. 69. The genitals in females are also simplified. Unlike in other termites, Mastodermidae females have an ovipositor, a feature strikingly similar to that in female cockroaches. The non-reproductive castes of termites are wingless and rely exclusively on their 6 legs for locomotion. The elates fly only for a brief amount of time, so they also rely on their legs. 66. The appearance of the legs is similar in each caste, but the soldiers have larger and heavier legs. The structure of the legs is consistent with other insects. The parts of a leg include a coxa, trochanter, femur, tibia, and the tarsus. 66. The number of tibial spurs on an individual's leg varies. Some species of termite have an aurolium, located between the claws, which is present in species that climb on smooth surfaces but is absent in most termites. 71. Unlike in ants, the hind wings and forewings are of equal length. 15. Most of the time, the elates are poor flyers. Their technique is to launch themselves in the air and fly in a random direction. 72. Studies show that in comparison to larger termites, smaller termites cannot fly long distances. When a termite is in flight, its wings remain at a right angle, and when the termite is at rest, its wings remain parallel to the body. 73. Caste system. Due to termites being hemimetabolous insects, where the young go through multiple and gradual adultoid molts before becoming an adult, the advent of eusociality has significantly altered the developmental patterns of this group of insects, of which, although similar, is not homologous to that of the eusocial Hymenoptera. Unlike ants, bees, and wasps which undergo a complete metamorphosis and as a result only exhibit developmental plasticity at the immobile larval stage, the mobile adultoid instars of termites remain developmentally flexible throughout all life stages up to the final molt, which has uniquely allowed for the evolution of distinct yet flexible castes amongst the immatures. As a result, the caste system of termites consists mostly of neotenous or juvenile individuals that undertake the most labor in the colony, which is in contrast to the eusocial Hymenoptera where work is strictly undertaken by the adults. The developmental plasticity in termites can be described similarly to cell potency, where each molt offers a varying level of phenotypic potency. Early instars typically exhibit the highest phenotypic potency and can be described as totipotent, able to molt into all alternative phenotypes, whereas following instars can be pluripotent, able to molt into reproductives and non-reproductives but cannot molt into at least one phenotype, to multipotent, able to molt into either reproductive or non-reproductive phenotypes, to unipotent, able to molt into developmentally close phenotypes, and then finally committed, no longer able to change phenotype. Functionally an adult. 74. In most termites, phenotypic potency decreases with every successive molt. Notable exceptions are basal taxa such as the Archodermopsidae, which are able to retain high developmental plasticity even up to the late instars. In these basal taxa, the immatures are able to go through progressive, nymph-toimago regressive, wing to wingless, and stationary, size increase, remains wingless molts, which typically indicates the developmental trajectory an individual follows. 75, 76. There is significant variation of the developmental patterns in termites even across closely related taxa, but can typically be generalized into the following two patterns. The first is a linear developmental pathway, where all immatures are capable of developing into winged adults, elates exhibit high phenotypic potency, and where there exists no true sterile caste other than the soldier. The second is the bifurcated developmental pathway, where immatures diverge into two distinct developmental lineages known as the nymphal winged and apterous wingless lines. The bifurcation occurs early, either at the egg or the first two instars, and represents an irreversible and committed development to either the reproductive or non-reproductive lifestyles. As such, the apterous lineage consists mostly of wingless and truly altruistic sterile individuals, true workers, soldiers, whereas the nymphal lineage consists mainly of fertile individuals destined to become winged reproductives. The bifurcated developmental pathway is found mainly in the derived taxa, i.e. Neoisoptera, and is believed to have evolved in tandem with the sterile worker caste as species move to foraging for food beyond their nests, as opposed to the nest also being the food, such as in obligate wood dwellers. 77, 75. There are three main castes which are discussed below. Developmental biology of ants versus termites. As opposed to ants which have a linear and irreversible development from larval instars to adult imago, termites exhibit a more complex and often bifurcated development which allows for more flexible caste pathways. Although in most termites, caste development is restricted to closely related pathways dependent on a variety of factors such as pheromonal cues, sex and size of an individual. Worker termites undertake the most labor within the colony, being responsible for foraging, food storage, and brood and nest maintenance. 78, 79. Workers are tasked with the digestion of cellulose in food and are thus the most likely caste to be found in infested wood. The process of worker termites feeding other nestmates is known as truffle. The process of worker termites feeding other nestmates is known as trophallaxis. Trophallaxis is an effective nutritional tactic to convert and recycle nitrogenous components. 80. It frees the parents from feeding all but the first generation of offspring, allowing for the group to grow much larger and ensuring that the necessary gut symbionts are transferred from one generation to another. Workers are believed to have evolved from older wingless immatures, larvae, that evolved cooperative behaviors, and indeed in some basal taxa the late instar larvae are known to undertake the role of workers without differentiating as a true separate caste. 79. 74. Workers can either be male or female, although in some species with polymorphic workers either sex may be restricted to a certain developmental path. Workers may also be fertile or sterile, however the term, worker, is normally reserved for the latter, having evolved in taxa that exhibit a bifurcated developmental pathway. 77. As a result, sterile workers like in the family Termites are termed true workers and are the most derived, while those that are undifferentiated and fertile as in the wood nesting Archaeodermopsidae are termed pseudogates, which are the most basal. 76. True workers are individuals which irreversibly develop from the Apteris lineage and have completely forego development into a winged adult. They display altruistic behaviors and either have terminal molts or exhibit a low level of phenotypical potency. True workers across different termite taxa, Mastodermatidae, Hododermatidae, Rhinodermatidae and Termitidae, can widely vary in the level of developmental plasticity even between closely related taxa, with many species having true workers that can molt into the other Apteris castes such as ergotoids, worker reproductive, Apteris neotenix, soldiers, or the other worker castes. Pseudogates sensu stricto are individuals which arise from the linear developmental pathway that have regressively molted and lost their wing buds, and are regarded as totipotent immatures. They are capable of performing work but are overall less involved in labor and considered more cooperative than truly altruistic. Pseudogates sensu lato, otherwise known as false workers, are most represented in basal lineages Calodermatidae, Archaeodermopsidae, Hododermopsidae, Ceratermitidae, and closely resemble true workers in which they also perform most of the work and are similarly altruistic, however differ in developing from the linear developmental pathway where they exist in a stationary molt, i.e. they have halted development before the growth of wing buds, and are regarded as pluripotent immatures. 76, 75. The soldier caste is the most anatomically and behaviorally specialized, and their sole purpose is to defend the colony. 81. Many soldiers have large heads with highly modified powerful jaws so enlarged that they cannot feed themselves. Instead, like juveniles, they are fed by workers. 81. 82. Fontanelles, simple holes in the forehead that lead to a gland which exudes defensive secretions, are a feature of the clade Neoisoptera and are present in all extant taxa such as Rhinodermatidae. 81. 82. Fontanelles, simple holes in the forehead that lead to a gland which exudes defensive secretions, are a feature of the clade Neoisoptera and are present in all extant taxa such as Rhinodermatidae. Instead, like juveniles, they are fed by workers. 81. 82. Fontanelles, simple holes in the forehead that lead to a gland which exudes defensive secretions, are a feature of the clade Neoisoptera and are present in all extant taxa such as Rhinodermatidae. 83. The majority of termite species have mandibulate soldiers which are easily identified by the disproportionately large sclerotized head and mandibles. 79. 81. Among certain termites, the soldier caste has evolved globular, phragmotic heads to block their narrow tunnels such as seen in cryptoderms. 84. Amongst mandibulate soldiers, the mandibles have been adapted for a variety of defensive strategies: biting, crushing, incisitoderms, slashing, cuboderms, slashing, snapping, dentaspicoderms, symmetrical snapping, termes, asymmetrical snapping, neocopriderms, and piercing armiderms. 85. In the more derived termite taxa, the soldier caste can be polymorphic and include minor and major forms. Other morphologically specialized soldiers includes the nosutes, which have a horn-like nozzle projection, nosus, on the head. 79. These unique soldiers are able to spray noxious, sticky secretions containing diterpenes at their enemies. 86. Nitrogen fixation plays an important role in nosute nutrition. 87. Soldiers are normally a committed sterile caste and so do not molt into anything else, but in certain basal taxa like the Archaeodermopsidae they are known to rarely molt into neotenic forms that develop functional sexual organs. 88. In species with the linear developmental pathway, soldiers develop from Apteris immatures and constitute the only true sterile caste in these taxa. 88. The primary reproductive caste of a colony consists of the fertile adult, imago, female and male individuals, colloquially known as the queen and king. 89. The queen of the colony is responsible for egg production of the colony. Unlike in ants, the male and female reproductives form lifelong pairs where the king will continue to mate with the queen throughout their lives. 90. In some species, the abdomen of the queen swells up dramatically to increase fecundity, a characteristic known as physogastrism. 78. 89. Depending on the species, the queen starts producing reproductive elates at a certain time of the year, and huge swarms emerge from the colony when nuptial flight begins. These swarms attract a wide variety of predators. 89. The queens can be particularly long-lived for insects, with some reportedly living as long as 30 or 50 years. In both the linear and bifurcated developmental pathways, the primary reproductives only develop from winged immatures. In both the linear and bifurcated developmental pathways, the primary reproductives only develop from winged immatures nymphs. These winged immatures are capable of regressively molding into a form known as Brachypterus neotenix, nymphoids which retain juvenile and adult characteristics. BNs can be found in both the derived and basal termite taxa, and generally serve as supplementary reproductives. 74. 75. Life cycle. A young termite nymph featuring visible wing buds. Nymphs mainly develop into elates. A termite alate with shed wings from other elates on an interior windowsill. Shedding of wings is associated with reproductive swarming. 91. Termites are often compared with the social Hymenoptera, ants and various species of bees and wasps, but their differing evolutionary origins result in major differences in life cycle. In the eusocial Hymenoptera, the workers are exclusively female. Males, drones, are haploid and develop from unfertilized eggs, while females, both workers and the queen, are diploid and develop from fertilized eggs. In contrast, worker termites, which constitute the majority in a colony, are diploid individuals of both sexes and develop from fertilized eggs. Depending on species, male and female workers may have different roles in a termite colony. 92. The life cycle of a termite begins with an egg, but is different from that of a bee or ant in that it goes through a developmental process called incomplete metamorphosis, going through multiple gradual pre-adult molts that are highly developmentally plastic. Cine and dentistry developmental plasticity hash. Tilde. Text equals developmental percent 20 plasticity percent before becoming an adult. 74. 93. Unlike in other hemimetabolous insects, nymphs are more strictly defined in termites as immature young with visible wing buds, which often invariably go through a series of molts to become winged adults. 94. 74. Larvae, which are defined as early nymph instars with absent wing buds, exhibit the highest developmental potentiality and are able to molt into elates, soldiers, neotenix, or workers. Workers are believed to have evolved from larvae, sharing many similarities to the extent that workers can be regarded as larval, in that both lack wings, eyes, and functional reproductive organs while maintaining varying levels of developmental flexibility, although usually to a much lesser extent in workers. The main distinction being that while larvae are wholly dependent on other nestmates to survive, workers are independent and are able to feed themselves and contribute to the colony. Workers remain wingless and across many taxa become developmentally arrested, appearing to not change into any other caste until death. 74. In some basal taxa, there is no distinction, with the workers, pseudogates essentially being late instar larvae that retain the ability to change into all other castes. 75. The development of larvae into adults can take months. The time period depends on food availability and nutrition, temperature, and the size of the colony. Since larvae and nymphs are unable to feed themselves, workers must feed them, but workers also take part in the social life of the colony and have certain other tasks to accomplish such as foraging, building or maintaining the nest or tending to the queen. 79. 95. Pheromones regulate the caste system in termite colonies, preventing all but a very few of the termites from becoming fertile queens. 96. Queens of the eusocial termite Reticuliturn spiratus are capable of a long lifespan without sacrificing fecundity. These long-lived queens have a significantly lower level of oxidative damage, including oxidative DNA damage, than workers, soldiers and nymphs. 97. The lower levels of damage appear to be due to increased catalase, an enzyme that protects against oxidative stress. 97. Reproduction. Alates swarming during nuptial flight after rain. Termite alates, winged virgin queens and kings only leave the colony when a nuptial flight takes place. Alate males and females pair up together and then land in search of a suitable place for a colony. 98. A termite king and queen do not mate until they find such a spot. When they do, they excavate a chamber big enough for both, close up the entrance and proceed to mate. 98. After mating, the pair may never surface again, spending the rest of their lives in the nest. Nuptial flight time varies in each species. For example, alates in certain species emerge during the day in summer while others emerge during the winter. 99. The nuptial flight may also begin at dusk, when the alates swarm around areas with many lights. The time when nuptial flight begins depends on the environmental conditions, the time of day, moisture, wind speed and precipitation. 99. The number of termites in a colony also varies, with the larger species typically having 101,000 individuals. However, some termite colonies, including those with many individuals, can number in the millions. 61. The queen only lays 10 to 20 eggs in the very early stages of the colony, but lays as many as 1,000 a day when the colony is several years old. 79. At maturity, a primary queen has a great capacity to lay eggs. In some species, the mature queen has a greatly distended abdomen and may produce 40,000 eggs a day. 100. The two mature ovaries may have some 2,000 ovarioles each. 101. The abdomen increases the queen's body length to several times more than before mating and reduces her ability to move freely. Attendant workers provide assistance. Egg grooming behavior of Reticuliturn spiratus workers in a nursery cell. The king grows only slightly larger after initial mating and continues to mate with the queen for life. A termite queen can live between 30 and 50 years. This is very different from ant colonies, in which a queen mates once with the males and stores the gametes for life, as the male ants die shortly after mating. The king grows only slightly larger after initial mating and continues to mate with the queen for life. A termite queen can live between 30 and 50 years. This is very different from ant colonies, in which a queen mates once with the males and stores the gametes for life, as the male ants die shortly after mating. 95. If a queen is absent, a termite king produces pheromones which encourage the development of replacement termite queens. 102. As the queen and king are monogamous, sperm competition does not occur. 103. Termites going through incomplete metamorphosis on the path to becoming alates form a subcaste in certain species of termite, functioning as potential supplementary reproductives. These supplementary reproductives only mature into primary reproductives upon the death of a king or queen, or when the primary reproductives are separated from the colony. 104. 105. Supplementaries have the ability to replace a dead primary reproductive, and there may also be more than a single supplementary within a colony. 79. 79. Some queens have the ability to switch from sexual reproduction to asexual reproduction. Studies show that while termite queens mate with the king to produce colony workers, the queens reproduce their replacements neotenic queens parthenogenetically. 106. 107. The neotropical termite Emberatorns neotenicus and several other related species produce colonies that contain a primary king accompanied by a primary queen or by up to 200 neotenic queens that had originated through the Lydocus parthenogenesis of a founding primary queen. 108. The form of parthenogenesis likely employed maintains heterozygosity in the passage of the genome from mother to daughter, thus avoiding inbreeding depression. Behavior and ecology. Diet. Termite fecal pellets. Termites are primarily detritivores, consuming dead plants at any level of decomposition. They also play a vital role in the ecosystem by recycling waste material such as dead wood, feces and plants. 109, 110, 111. Many species eat cellulose, having a specialized midgut that breaks down the fiber. 112. Termites are considered to be a major source, 11%, of atmospheric methane, one of the prime greenhouse gases, produced from the breakdown of cellulose. 113. Termites rely primarily upon a symbiotic microbial community that includes 113. Termites rely primarily upon a symbiotic microbial community that includes bacteria, flagellate protists such as metamonids and hypermastigids. This community provides the enzymes that digest the cellulose, allowing the insects to absorb the end products for their own use. 114. 115. Trichonymphid flagellate from Reticuliturns. Light microscope image of living cell. The microbial ecosystem present in the termite gut contains many species found nowhere else on Earth. Termites hatch without these symbionts present in their guts, and develop them after fed a culture from other termites. 116. Gut protozoa, such as Trichonympha, in turn, rely on symbiotic bacteria embedded on their surfaces to produce some of the necessary digestive enzymes. Most higher termites, especially in the family Termitidae, can produce their own cellulase enzymes, but they rely primarily upon the bacteria. The flagellates have been lost in Termitidae. 117, 118, 119. Researchers have found species of spirochetes living in termite guts capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen to a form usable by the insect. 116. Scientists' understanding of the relationship between the termite digestive tract and the microbial endosymbionts is still rudimentary. What is true in all termite species, however, is that the workers feed the other members of the colony with substances derived from the digestion of plant material, either from the mouth or anus. 80. 120. Judging from closely related bacterial species, it is strongly presumed that the termites and cockroaches' gut microbiota derives from their Dictyopteran ancestors. 121 Despite primarily consuming decaying plant material as a group, many termite species have been observed to opportunistically feed on dead animals to supplement their dietary needs. Termites are also known to harbor bacteriophages in their gut. 122, 123, 124, 125, 126 Some of these bacteriophages likely infect the symbiotic bacteria which play a key role in termite biology. The exact role and function of bacteriophages in the termite gut microbiome is not clearly understood. Termite gut bacteriophages also show similarity to bacteriophages crasphage found in the human gut. Gnathomiderns tubiformans have seasonal food habits. For example, they may preferentially consume red 3 on Aristida longicetta during the summer, buffalo grass bucklodactyloids from